Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me clearly. We're about to start this online info session for the MSc in Sustainable Urban Development. I'll give a minute or a couple of minutes just to allow people to be accepted to the meeting, and we'll make a start then. Okay, so let me start this info session then. So let me start by introducing myself. My name is Patricia Canellas. I am a departmental lecturer and program co-director for the Masters in Sustainable Urban Development here at Oxford University Continuing Education Department. We're here today for about 45-minute session where I will try to guide you through what we consider to be a transformative part-time MSc program for working professionals across the globe. So let me tell you a bit about the program. So program overview. So this is a taught part-time over 2 years program that hopefully enables you to keep with your job, enables you to work without compromising your learning experience. I'll tell you a bit how this works, how often you're expected to be in Oxford, but also in London, and how it works between those periods where you'll have your residential teaching weeks. So the program is delivered by tutors from the Department for Continuing Education, but also with academics from across the University of Oxford, including the department, the business school, Said Business School, Geography Department, and others. But also we heavily rely on industry and practitioners to make sure that this program is relevant to try and bridge academic and practical knowledge so that you can use the information you and the knowledge you gather from this program in your, say, tomorrow's meeting, if you will. So the program is aimed at working professionals. We have a vast range of geographies. Our students and alumni come from all corners of the globe, and we hope to provide, and so that you can join, a knowledgeable global community with truly diverse perspectives. So who are we? This is the core team based at CONTED, Continuing Education Department. Course directors, myself, Patricia Canellas, and Dr. Nigel Maddy. Course administrators, Sarah Cox and Fiona Sibyl, and other academics, Dr. Nihan Alkayeken, Dr. Idalina Batista, Dr. Francesca Freud, Debbie Hopkins, David Howard, Pedro Marques, Vlad Mikenko, Matthew Hardy, and Ben Bolgar. This is us on the pictures, as you probably guess. So who is this course for? So we've been running this program for, we are in our 14th year, so we've been running it for 13 years. We have a network of students of 300 plus and counting, students and alumni, I mean, that have been part of the program, and they come from over 60 countries worldwide. The program really aims for students that operate in a range of urban contexts worldwide. So we have students both from private, public, but also third sector organizations. A really diverse group of people join the program, both in terms of their geographies, but also in terms of their professional backgrounds and current jobs. The course really tries to foster collaboration, creativity, perspective sharing, and networking skills. So let me tell you a bit about the course structure. The course comprises the following elements. So we have 8 core themes, urban theory, all around urban theory, which are the 8 teaching weeks, residential teaching weeks, that the taught element of this program comprises. It includes research methods, which we take great pride of the way we teach them and the skills we help students to develop in terms of research methodologies, which we consider a skill for life, a transferable skill for life. And there's also the dissertation element of the program. I'll tell you a bit more about these later on. So the 8 residential teaching weeks over the 2-year period are 6 are held in Oxford and 2 are held in London. For your reference, I can tell you when the weeks are happening for this academic year, 24-25, and you will be able to see on our website soon, September, I think, all dates for the academic year 2025-26, so the year that you would be eventually be applying for. You can know the exact dates so that you can plan ahead. So the dates for this academic year are mid-October. This is year 1, mid-October, early December this year. Then week 3 in London, February, early February. Then you go home again, and then you come back for your week 4 in the last week of April. Then back home again to your job, to your family, to your other commitments, and then back in Oxford for the week of the 16th of June. So this is your year 1. For your year 2, you will come back for the last week of October, and then in London this time round, and then again end of January, and then for your final teaching week, mid-March. You'll then have 6 months to focus on your dissertation work, and the submission date is end of September. So this is the timeline, how the program is organized. Between these residential teaching weeks, you have work to do. You might have tutorials with your supervisors, but you're basically doing the coursework at home or where you're based at the moment, not necessarily in Oxford or London. So course content. So the 5 first-year teaching weeks, the titles are Introducing Sustainable Urban Development. Second teaching week is Climate Change in the Built Environment. Third teaching week in London, Placemaking and Urban Design. Week 4, Financing Sustainability, back in Oxford. And week 5, Sustainable Transport, again in Oxford. Then you have the long summer, where you'll get the chance to start working on your dissertation a bit more seriously. By then you'll be prepared because you had both research training, but you were exposed to a number of relevant topics to the overall topic, sustainable urban development. So you came back for year 2 for your teaching week 6, called Urbanism, Community and City Building in London. You go back once more and come back once more for your M7 teaching week, Urbanization in the Global South. Go back home, and then again back to Oxford in March, Leadership, Governance, and Future Cities. These are the umbrella topics under which each teaching week is adjusted every year to respond to the more pressing challenges of the moment. But it gives you a very good indication of the sort of topics we will be covering week after week during this 8 residential teaching weeks in Oxford and London, as noted on the slides. So we work with associated organizations. We run the program in partnership with the now called King's Foundation, before called Prince's Foundation. The King's Foundation hosts us for the 2 teaching weeks in London. The course is also accredited by the RICS, the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. And all students are entitled to free student membership of the RICS and can register for the qualification Chartered Environmentalists. So course commitments and assessment. So let me tell you a bit more about how the everyday of the master's program is. So for each teaching week and after the teaching week, you will complete an essay of up to 3,000 words on the theme of the teaching week. You are given 4 essay questions or essay prompts, and you will choose one and write the 3,000 words maximum essay. in response to that particular question you chose, which will be heavily linked to the topics covered during the teaching week. So this happens every teaching week. So when you go back home or where you're currently based, you have about a month to work on this essay, you submit the essay, and then you still have another month to start doing the readings, the preparation work for the coming teaching week. So this is the rule that applies to every teaching week. The second year, you're going to focus more heavily on work around your dissertation, particularly between March and September of your second year. And this is where you get the chance to do your research and to write your dissertation, up to 15,000 word research dissertation. You do this with a supervisor, so that you meet about 5 times during that period online, because you're all remote eventually. Potentially you are all remote, most of our students are. And through the learning you were exposed to during the 8 residential teaching weeks, including research methodologies, plus your supervisor, you'll be in a very good position to become an independent researcher. That's what we aim to achieve, to let our students achieve, become independent researchers. You choose your own topic for your dissertation in consultation with your supervisor. Your supervisor will be able to guide you through the process of selecting a good research question that is doable for a master's dissertation, that is not too broad. Too specific is normally a problem that we don't have. Questions tend to be initially too broad, even for experienced researchers. And so we guide you through this process of selecting a topic and a research question that you can do during the 6 months between March and the end of September that you have allocated exclusively, almost exclusively in terms of the masters, for working on your dissertation. So a bit about Oxford University life. It's nice here, as you probably guessed or know. As a matriculated postgraduate degree student, you'll become a member of one of the university colleges, which means there's nice, fancy, some dinners are nice and fancy, others are just nice. The collegiate system makes studying at Oxford a unique experience, really. Oxford colleges are friendly communities where you can immerse yourself in college seminars, dinners, and informal occasions. So quite often after the teaching week, after one day of teaching of the teaching week, so the teaching weeks run from 9 to 5, 5 days, obviously with lunch breaks, coffee breaks, walks, site visits, lectures. We take great pride on the way we teach. We try and teach our students in a conversational way. There's obviously an element of a lecture where you listen from the speaker, and then we tend to try and enable a discussion that is most relevant for the students in the classroom, considering their different backgrounds, professional backgrounds, and geographies. We try and teach through conversation, so that you can benefit from your colleagues' experiences, so that you can learn from their professional challenges, and you can share your own, and we could try and understand how the usefulness of urban theory and urban practice to try and address the current challenges related to sustainable urban development. So quite often, after those intense teaching days, there are social events, some in the colleges, others in the department. So it's these residential weeks are really full on. So 9 to 5 teaching related activities, often followed by social activities in the evening, where most of the staff tends to be as well. So you get to know us pretty well now. Research projects, our professional backgrounds. So it's a quite intense relationship between you and your colleagues and the students and staff. So let me use some quotes to illustrate what some of our alumni how they see the program and how they describe it. So from Dylan says, and I'm quoting, "I have recently taken on a new role in government, leading the planning and preparation from an infrastructure point of view for the advent of electric, connected, and autonomous vehicles." This is subsequent to his master's. Rachel says, "I have recently started working for the UK's largest housing association. Such projects involve complex economic, social, and technical and environmental considerations, which I feel more confident in analyzing and responding to following this master's." Marvin says, "I saw the MSc as an opportunity to enhance my competencies and expand my critical knowledge to progress my career mission of meaningful contributing to the knowledge and practice of city climate action." You can see more student highlights on our website, which we will give you the links in the final slide. So, to wrap up this first part of the session, could this be you in September 2025? The plan is, what we offer here is you can build your professional and personal network and benefit from a worldwide community while you're still in practice, still in your day job, and eventually changing to a potential better job. But this is a quite unique feature of this master's, is that being in part-time for everyone, you can carry on with your professional and personal responsibilities and previous commitments while you are trained to become an expert in the field of sustainable urban development. A few images of our alumni and a QR code. If you want to scan, you will be notified when applications for the 2025 academic year open. For more information, please check our website and follow us on social media. So thank you for your time. And let's open. So let me ask you if you could put your questions on the Q&A function rather than the chat. So let's see. Then scholarships. Scholarships is a question that we get often. There are at least 2 scholarships, one specific to our program. So every year we attribute a scholarship. It's based on academic merit. And there's one university-wide scholarship that we have had the privilege of having a few students of ours getting that scholarship. There might be others from your own countries, from your own sectors. Different sectors could potentially be funding master's degrees. But we can confirm that there's these 2 for the time being for the program. Sarah shared a lot more information about scholarship opportunities, funding opportunities, and perhaps something worth highlighting is that to be eligible for this scholarships, you would need to apply by the deadline, the January deadline. So we have multiple deadlines throughout the year. So entry requirements for the degree, Nicola asks. We tend, as I said, this master's is really targeting working professionals. And in that sense, we expect students or candidates to have a couple of years of experience, professional experience relevant to sustainable urban development. Being such a broad topic, many different professional experiences do fit under this definition of having relevant professional experience. So you could be architects, planners, but lawyers, journalists, environmentalists, activists. We have had a number of different professional backgrounds, and we think students thrive in this environment of diversity. So 2 years of professional experience is normally what we expect. We also have a 3.7 GPA expectation, even though being a program targeting working professionals, we do take into consideration applications that fall below the 3.7 GPA threshold if there is enough professional background supporting the applicant. So it's not a hard cut line, but it gives you a reference point. What are the requirements? So you have to have a bachelor's degree. And I think those are the three key requirements. So bachelor's degree with or higher further education, higher education, 3.7 GPA, and professional relevant experience. I hope I've addressed Nicola's question. If not, please do ask whatever I haven't addressed. So Abjol, what is the scope of candidates? I'm interested in digital town planning in the UK. Would such domestic planning issues fall out of the scope of globalized and sustainability focused on sustainable urbanism? Not at all. We tend to try and really cover a number of aspects relevant to different geographies. We do try hard to make sure we cover them fairly. And so oftentimes we bring case studies from the global south, but we also, being at Oxford, we do try and rely on Oxford examples. Oxford planners, for example, come and speak to us. And so not just Oxford, but UK relevant information is a very significant part of this master's, for sure. And digital, the rise of AI and digital town planning is definitely a topic that we've been covering more and more for the last 5 years, because it's becoming such a pressing topic that perhaps wasn't as much so 5 years ago. So other questions, let's see. From Sherelle, and I'm sorry again if I'm mispronouncing names, such international cohorts make it a bit of a challenge to get all names right. So the question is, how does a prospect student prepare for a postgraduate degree in sustainable development? Well, I guess a fundamental aspect of preparing for a program in sustainable urban development is to start identifying key readings on the topic, start identifying best practices, start perhaps, say you are considering this particular program, perhaps look at the profiles of the different scholars involved in this program, see what they have written. You will have hyperlinks to a number of publications we are all involved in, many of them open source, meaning you can just download them. There's no paywalls of any sort. But I would say, yes, start reading and start around the topic and start identifying what is it around the world that worries you and what sort of problems you would like to try and address and understand better to then later on try and solve or contribute to solving. So reading is a fundamental aspect of any learning process. There's other dimensions, other ways of learning by sitting in lectures, listening, engaging in informed debates. But yes, I would suggest, why don't you start with the profiles of the staff involved in the masters, see what they have published, and see what you make of it. So another question. I am a chartered civil engineer and geotechnical engineer of the Institution of Civil Engineers and Engineering Council. Do your course accept people with backgrounds from civil engineering? Thanks. Yes, absolutely. Civil engineers is another sort of typical background that we have in our program, alongside architects, planners, environmentalists, environmental engineers. So I would say that these are parts of the core background, professional backgrounds we tend to encounter amongst our applicants and then students. Another question from Moses. I am currently studying development studies and I am in my 3rd year. It is advisable for me to pause my studies here and move on with this and take advantage of the opportunities. So I'm not sure what level you're studying development studies. I'm assuming, is this bachelor's degree? If so, as I said, we do tend to expect a couple of years of professional experience after completing the bachelor's degree, students, candidates completing their bachelor's degrees. And in that sense, yes, and in that sense, pausing your current studies doesn't seem like the way forward if you intend to get into this master's degree. Okay. Now, can you share the process of college selection and accommodation arrangements recommended for international students? Right, so college are allocated. You do get the chance to choose your preferred colleges, but you are allocated to a college that is relevant and works in partnership with the program. So Kellogg College, for example, is one of the colleges where we have many of our students. And as you're here only for the residential teaching weeks, you are not provided with permanent accommodation at the colleges. If you want to have a place for the teaching weeks when you are at Oxford to do the masters, you'll then arrange that accommodation directly with the college. It's not predefined that you need to stay within the college. There's many different opportunities for you to stay when you come to Oxford or London. Okay, Brittany, I left school ages ago. What happens if I couldn't get at least 2 academic referees for application? That's not a problem. We have many candidates in that similar situation. What we ask is then for your professional referees to try and write about your academic skills. And what we mean by that is your capacity to engage with complex material, to make sense of extensive readings or extensive data sources. It's to speak to, if that referee could speak to how they see you being able to do this master's, having the capacity, which could very well have been developed through your professional life, the capacity to read, write, and make sense of what you're reading, basically. I hope that addresses that question. Another question. Let's see. Does the program assist with job placement post-graduation? And what types of jobs do you think graduates are best prepared for? They typically take following graduation. Very well. So we do have, the University of Oxford has a career service, which is available for all student Oxfords for life, where this would be one of the places for you to go to and try and make sure that your CV is written and as clearly as possible, as sharp as possible. But also they run a number of events where they bring in industry players to get to know Oxford students. They also help you with preparing for job interviews, all this sort of things you can imagine a career service does. And it does it for life, as in once you are an Oxford student, you have access to this service for life. So this is something quite useful that I recommend to many of our students, particularly the ones who have the least professional experience, because they might want to really develop the skills of communicating who they are to the right industry players. Obviously, there's also us, the team, who can help and guide you through the process of identifying particularly relevant either institutions or private sector organizations where we think your profile would best fit. And in terms of the second part of the question, so what sorts of jobs are our graduates ready for or taking as it is? So many of our students, do change jobs while they are doing their masters because they are developing a number of skills that they might not have had before. And some of the jobs have to do with, say, for instance, ESG consultant, environmental social governance consultants, net zero property manager. We have also students going in the public sector for example, taking roles such as a climate change planner, or so a number of jobs around the carbon economy, climate change, but also social sustainability and economic sustainability. So it's quite varied, but also from the examples, the highlights I read to you, there's also students going into housing associations, which is NGOs in the UK providing social and affordable housing. So there's a range of job opportunities, which you could perhaps check on our website as well, where there's a number of student highlights, and it could tell you more job roles that our students have gone into. So we have Brian saying, hi, Dr. Penelish, thanks for the comprehensive overview. I graduated with a degree in business, majoring in finance, and have work experience in infrastructure and built environment investments. Excellent. Does the course accept candidates with such background? Well, sounds to me like an ideal background, in the sense that you have work experience in infrastructure in the built environment, which is really what this program is about, is sustainable urban development. And so in that sense, infrastructure and built environment are at the core of every single discussion we have. So yes, do please apply. Another question from Abiol. Will it be possible to receive support in developing a publication profile while on the program? I'm not very sure what publication profile exactly means in this context. I'll perhaps speak to something that we've been more recently working on, which is some of our best students with best dissertations. We have been working on getting them published, as in student and supervisor co-author a paper that is published in academic journals. We have a few examples already published and others in the process. It's quite a lengthy progress to get published in a peer-reviewed, top-quality journal. But this is something that we are more and more doing with our students. Not sure if it completely fits under the publication profile, but gives you a sense of the work staff and students can do together. And would prior publication also strengthen the application? Absolutely. We ask for, I think, is it 2 or 3, maybe 2 pieces of writing that you can choose from something you have written before for a previous degree, or that you have prepared in preparation for the application for this master's program. But for example, this would be an excellent example that we would be very happy to read to get a sense on what interests the student and their candidate, and the capacity of the candidate to write those ideas down. Okay, let's look for the next question from Shafan. I have a bachelor's degree in urban and regional planning and have a keen interest to deepen my knowledge in sustainable development and transportation. I was wondering if Oxford provides internship opportunities for students that are studying in their program. Internship opportunities. Okay. I will address this question in a second. I wanted to search for an internship part-time opportunity in the university while studying in the MSc Urban Development Program, if it is allowed. It is allowed because this is a part-time master's. So you can take a full-time job alongside this master's. In terms of opportunities available, I guess this will vary. We don't have necessarily an internship program running. There might be opportunities for internships while doing the master's. We do have some students that have stayed and worked for Oxford University, managing the sustainability of the portfolio of Oxford estates, for example. But the student actually didn't start during the master's. It was an opportunity that arose after the student finished their master's. So there are job opportunities within the Oxford University, but there's nothing we could there's no running program as it will. Oh, so Sarah just shared that Careers Service has internship opportunities advertised for all university students. So there you go. Through the Careers Service, there are apparently internship opportunities advertised right now. And you probably can find a bit more about those in the link that Sarah shared here on the chat. So let's see. Jonas, agronomist, and I participated in urban agriculture projects in São Paulo City, in Brazil. Excuse me. Would projects in urban agriculture have space in the scope of the program? I think of this line of research as a sustainable solution to underutilized urban spaces. Thanks. Yes, absolutely. We do have, even though it's urban, I don't know, you might not be familiar with a concept coined that refers to sustainable urban development as planetary urbanization, as in you can't really separate the urban and the rural anymore. It's a sort of arbitrary and artificial separation. So if you're thinking about how cities work, you need to think about where our food is produced. And particularly if you're thinking of it in terms of utilizing redundant spaces, obsolete spaces in the post-industrial landscape of cityscapes, that's definitely something that we cover in our masters, and it's of utter relevance to sustainable urban development. So let's see, next question. Yes, so there's a question here from Nurvina. I would like to ask about the opportunity to engage with the professors and communities outside the class. Are there any platforms for discussion or interact with the communities to solve real-life urban problems? There are, at Oxford, there are as many as opportunities as possible, you can imagine. There are a number of events and groups and action-led research groups that you could tap into while being a scholar, a student at Oxford University. So my question would be yes. Okay, so Ellen asks, I wanted to ask if there's a specific reason why transport has been, this moved, singled out as a sector of intensive study instead of any other urban sector like energy, the built environment, waste, food, for example. Yeah, that's a very good question and speaks to the heart of some of the discussions we have as a team and with our students. The way we see it is that on the one hand, we have in-house experts on transport, and that's a key fundamental criteria for choosing the areas of focus. On the other hand, all these topics you are mentioning, for instance, energy, Dr. Idalina Batista, one of the staff members, is our energy expert. You can look into her profile, see her publications if you want to. And her lectures, and perhaps I could have said this before, but I can say it now, our lectures are really research driven. So we all bring to the lecture room our experiences with the research projects we are currently involved. So Idalina, for example, is doing research around energy in Mozambique, and many of her lectures speak about energy. The built environment is really present in every single teaching week and lecture, I would say, being a sustainable urban development program. It's really everything revolves around the built environment. Waste in food, yes, we definitely cover these topics. Some years we might have experts that can speak about water with more propriety. Other years we might have experts speaking about waste of food. So I would say that even though these topics are covered in every single teaching week, we did decide for the time being to have a teaching week on transport because we have a set of skills within our department, but also from geography, the Transport Sustainable Unit, TSU, from Geography Department at University of Oxford, our partners since the beginning of this program, delivering the Sustainable Urban Development Teaching Week. There's also a significant amount of debate of should we have a teaching week called the Global South, focusing on Global South, even though we do have case studies and readings relevant to the Global South throughout the 8 teaching weeks. We, for the time being, decided that yes, it is a problem of a scale. It's where rapid urbanization is happening. It's where the greatest challenges are happening, and the nature of the challenges are such that we consider that it requires a teaching week on its own, even though the topic of the Global South does run throughout the 8 teaching weeks. I hope it clarifies that matter. Okay, so Batuhan, what are the potential contributions of Oxford University to entrepreneurship? I don't have prior experience in this industry, but I have some ideas regarding sustainable urban development. Does the university accept such applications? Does the university provide funding for the realization of such projects? Okay, starting with the last question, if the university provides funding, well, again, there's plenty of opportunities at Oxford University, which you would have to explore on your own. So the program doesn't provide any funding, or the department, as far as I know, for the time being, even though we have had students that received small amounts of money to do community participation projects, but I'm not completely certain that where this funding came from. Entrepreneurship. Right. So I think if we're talking about solving problems for which we don't have easy answers and easy solutions, entrepreneurship is, again, a keyword that you would find across the 8 teaching weeks alongside leadership, alongside governance. So these are some of the ways in which sustainable urban development is being conceptualized, and solutions for the challenges related to sustainable urban development are being conceptualized. So a candidate with this area of interest would be a good candidate. So Clarissa asks, how the networking with others in the industry, like while being outside the UK? Right. So I'm assuming, Clarissa, that you're outside the UK, and how would this networking happen? Well, I would say that most of the networking happens face-to-face while you are at Oxford or London, but also by just being linked to the network of alumni, which, our social media, and where they all are, for instance, on LinkedIn. There might be other social platforms, but the LinkedIn is perhaps the most relevant one. You would have access to a pool of people from different backgrounds, different geographies that you could, speak to. I'm sure, all our alumni are quite helpful in helping you to make sense of what this program is about, in case you want to reach out to some of them. But then as candidates become students, they are quite supportive to each other to try and explore opportunities and give ideas on ways to explore professional opportunities to the network of sustainable urban development students and alumni. So can you share some of the common pitfalls for applicants who didn't quite make it? Okay, that's a very good question. Yes, there's a couple of things that I could speak about. The first is applications that have not been carefully crafted. We don't have many of those, but those are, easy rejects, and this is competitive, so you have to present yourself as clearly and as sharp as possible. Time is limited, plenty of applications, so please do make sure that the way you present yourself in the motivation letter, but also in the 2 pieces of written work we ask you to submit, are robust, carefully written, there's no typos, the topics are relevant. So another typical pitfall, not so typical, because I think most of our applications are actually robust, but I've encountered applications with written some pieces of work that are of no relevance to the topic of sustainable urban development, and that doesn't make a particularly robust application. And I would say those are the 2 major pitfalls, sort of not properly, fully developed letters of motivation and not really carefully crafted essays that you are to submit alongside your application. So I think we're now 5 minutes over the time. I think we've addressed all the questions. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful. So hope to meet some of you at some point in the future, and have a lovely week, and take care. Thank you.